Internet, Eric here. Well, if you watched my last video, I did a discussion video on the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, Kickboxer. And I talked about how much I enjoy that movie, how it's my favorite Van Damme movie, blah, blah, blah. If you haven't watched it, please go check it out. And I said I'm going to delve into the franchise. It is a franchise. There's like 6, 7 movies total. So let's get right down to it today. The follow-up, we're going to discuss Kickboxer 2. What is it? The Road Back? Yeah, because it doesn't say here. But Kickboxer 2, The Road Back. Now, if you're new to my channel, welcome. And I discuss plot spoilers, specific scenes, what have you. The basic plot to this is, I don't know if it's in real time or not. This came out in 1991. We are now following David Sloan, the third brother that we never heard of, because and there's a scene in the original Kickboxer where Kurt and Eric are talking about how Kurt went to go live in Europe with mom, Eric went to go stayed with dad, and they could just never get along, the parents. No mention of David, but young David is here. Kurt and Eric have been murdered. They've been murdered in between films, and they have been murdered by Tong Po. We find out they were murdered by Tong Po because of what happened at the end of the first film. And because Tong Po now can no longer get his honor back, Cary Hiroki Tagawa from Mortal Kombat and Rising Sun, Planet of the Apes, the Tim Burton film. Basically, when you need a bad guy to bad Asian man, you get Cary Tagawa. They set up a fight where Tong Po can get his honor back. Xian is back to help train David for this, and David is kind of down on his luck. He has the family gym that is, it's in the ghetto, and he's helping, young kids try to stay off the streets by giving them kickboxing lessons. And while that happens, he is attacked. A child dies in a fire, and David loses his faith, blah, blah, blah. Or not faith, but, faith in himself. And then he eventually, of course, we all know the story, gets his faith back, fights Tong Po, the end. So, okay. Now, David Sloan, played by Sasha Mitchell from Step by Step, the TV show Step by Step with Patrick Duffy and Suzanne Summers, of all people. I guess it's because I don't know if he was a professional kickboxer to begin with, but he was a martial artist. He's okay. He's not awful. He's not as bad as you would think if you've only seen him on Step by Step as the dumb shit nephew of Patrick Duffy. He can be very wooden at times, so don't expect much. But in all honesty, and I said it in my first video, Jean-Claude Van Damme can be pretty dorky and awful in part 1, when he's just, oh, Eric, he makes that type of face. But Sasha is really good at making David at least likable. You kind of root for him. You root for him when he's likable. He's really good with the kids. I like it when he's working with the kids, when he's telling them how they have to be respectful, because like the one kid that I mentioned dies in a fire, he takes him in off the streets, knows he's a punk, basically puts him to work and says, you're going to earn your keep here. And I like that. He's got okay chemistry with Xian, but other than that, he doesn't really have that too much interaction with other people, but he's okay. Let's get to Xian. I couldn't remember his name from the last movie. Dennis Chan. He's okay. He's not as funny in this movie. He's not in it as much. He still has his goofy one-liners. There's a reason why he's more serious in this, because you also find out that Mali was killed, his niece. She was murdered by Tong Po, and he's now here trying to help motivate David, because David was injured in that fire. I'll explain that in a second. But he's also trying to motivate David to get back into find the eye of the tiger, easiest way to say it, for his own benefit, because he also wants revenge on Tong Po. Cary Tagawa is Cary Tagawa. Says very little, very intimidating, stereotypical bad guy. He's always awesome. Peter Boyle's in this. Peter Boyle is a man who is, I think he's trying to buy out, I don't know if he's trying to buy out David's gym, but he wants to get David back into the ring. And David just keeps saying, no, 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 blah, blah, blah. He's just there. Doesn't do anything special. Tong Po, he's Michael Quissy. He's fine. He's actually credited as Michael Quissy in this movie instead of as Tong Po like he was in the first one. Doesn't really do much other than beat the shit out of someone and nearly kill him in a match. And then have a good fight with David Sloan. That's it. Not much at all. But he's still very good in the ring, very intimidating, very scary. Any other characters that you give a shit about? No. I don't know this actor's last name, but he's Matthias. You know, everyone calls him Matthias. He was in I Come in Peace. He plays a former rival of David's. He gets hired, I think, either by Peter Boyle or by Terry Tagawa after getting beaten by David in the ring. And he sets fire to the gym, and he shoots David in the leg. That's how David gets injured and has to be retrained by Xian. And that's what causes the little kid's death, because since David was shot in the leg, the kid died. And that's also kind of what helped David, lose his faith in himself, because if he couldn't save a kid, how can he defeat Tong Po? But Matthias is just there just to be the scary heavy. Couple kids. I mean, there's one, I guess you would say, girl. She's like, I guess, the second in command. She's a sidekick, however you want to say it. She's the older sister in Stay Tuned, if you've seen that, with John Ritter. She's fine. Brian Austin Green from 90210, 1991, so pre-90210, plays a punk kid in the beginning. That's about it. So, overall, it's just, no one's spectacular, no one's awful. Soundtrack, I didn't mention the soundtrack in Kickboxer. It's kind of like, Kickboxer 2 has the same type of soundtrack. Cheesy, fucking, fight for love type of songs. Nothing special. An improvement in Kickboxer 2. The fights are better. One thing, I don't remember if I mentioned it, but when Eric is fighting, doing his kickboxing, you can tell it's very choreographed and it's very slow moving. We have more matches in this one. We have David fighting Matthias, really good. And again, we get, it's a nice long fight. We get, close-ups of the punches hitting the people in the face. Really good editing. And you could feel the punches, you could feel the kicks in that fight. Really liked it. I forgot one more character. There was a character who is being trained by David, who is just there to... He is goaded into a fight by Peter Boyle. And you find out that at the last minute, the person who was scheduled to fight him drops out, and he fights Tong Po, gets his ass kicked. And I don't know if he's murdered, but I think he is. I think he's killed, but gets his ass beat by Tong Po. That guy's okay. But that fight, like I said with the fights, is really good. Really good. Tong Po murders this guy. I don't know if it's like he really murders him, but he beats the fucking shit out of him. And what I like is they really amp it up. It's like, kind of like, the Rocky 3 fight, in my opinion, where when Stallone is fighting Thunderlips, Rocky and Thunderlips, Hulk Hogan, because the referee is trying to stop the fight. He wants to stop the fight because he knows Tong Po is going to fucking kill this kid. And Tong Po goes fucking apeshit, beats the shit out of the referee. I think he throws him out of the ring, and then, boom, takes care of the kid. That's great. The final fight with David versus Tong Po is good, but I think it's a little underwhelming because it's an empty arena match. No one's in the crowd. The only one there is David, Tong Po, Kerry Tagawa, and Xian. So, without the crowd interaction, I mean, it's more personal that way, but without the crowd interaction, I think it's less exciting. It's the same style, Taipei deathmatch, with the tape and the glue and the broken glass. So it's still pretty bloody. It's just, I wish there was some crowd in there to cheer along, because that's also what made the fight with Kurt Van Dam against Tong Po better. One disappointment is we do get to see kind of what happened to Kurt. There apparently is a flashback when they're saying what happened to Kurt and Tong Po murdered him. It looks really cool. Tong Po standing there in the fucking rain, holding the gun. He shoots it, and then we see someone who doesn't look a goddamn thing like Van Damme laying down on the ground, bullet hole in his head, and then Tong Po just runs away into the darkness. I read on IMDb that apparently we were going to have a whole fight, and I guess the fight between with Michael Quissy and whoever the stand-in for Van Damme was so good, it would have overshadowed the final fight in the whole movie, that they kind of cut it, and they just showed Tong Po running away, which is disappointing, but whatever. Final thoughts on this. Nowhere near as fun as Kickboxer. This is a false statement right here. LA Times, better than Kickboxer? No. But usually a sequel wants to be as good of a original, or at least improve. David Sloan, the unknown younger brother of Eric and Kurt, he's more likable than Eric. I told you I did not like Eric, because Eric is just kind of like an unlikable, cocky prick. You like David. He's not as charismatic as Van Damme. I wish we had more Tong Po, but Tong Po is still a scary fucker. The improvements in this are the actual kickboxing matches. Really liked them. The way they were shot, really, really good. Highly recommend that stuff. The rest of this, it's just okay. If you liked Kickboxer, you want to know what happens because Tong Po comes back again. But if you want to know what happened in the follow-up, it's not a waste of an hour and 25 minutes. So, decent follow-up, maybe a little above mediocre. I didn't waste my time. I liked it, didn't love it. So, that's it. Kickboxer 2, The Road Back. Decent follow-up. That's it. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Comment below. Tell me if you've seen this. Tell me if you didn't even know there was a Kickboxer 2. Anything you have to say about the first one, please go check out that video. Still doing the franchise. We have 2 more with Sasha Mitchell as David Sloan. Then we have Redemption Kickboxer 5, which has Mark Dacascos. I think that's how you pronounce his name. The guy from Iron Chef and Double Dragon. And then we have it's remade with MMA fighters and Batista. Van Damme shows up. And then in the second one in the remake universe, Van Damme's still there, same MMA guys. And Batista, Tong Po has been defeated, and the new villain is played by the Mountain from Game of Thrones, and they throw in Mike Tyson. Other than that, I'm going to throw in random other videos, but that's what I got planned. I'm doing this Kickboxer franchise, and hopefully it doesn't take as long as the Phantasm franchise. Like and subscribe, click the bell. Cheers.